Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Card Authority, episode 39.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Plus,
it's 39.
A couple of little extra ones somewhere. Hope everyone's having a great evening. I guess it is 8 o'clock now. Daylight savings a little bit strange. Welcome aboard, Janks. It's been a massive week here. Optimum release week. We are absolutely off and running across not only our business interests, but the community, all the groups, all the break pages, eBay.
It's been huge.
How has the first week been for you?
So it's been a big 7 days, a really big 7 days actually. Certainly sleep deprived, which I don't mind at all. Feel like a bit of the Energizer bunny at this point. Just keep going and going. Huge week, obviously. Big anticipation, the announcement, and then the on sale. What was it? 4 weeks ago now, so it's sort of a 3-week lead in. Obviously, it seemed like there was a slight delay at the last minute there, with boxes expected a day or two late. But for the most part, I think most people, 99% of people, have received their boxes and now sort of open them, and it's been huge. Like, I'm definitely thinking probably 60 to 70% of the product has already been opened now. Talking in the realm of 5,000 to 6,000 boxes that have been opened.
Hey, we're 3 minutes in. Don't burn all the content straight away, right?
It's been huge. I haven't picked up as many cards probably this time around as I did last year, both because we've obviously been really busy and in the deep end, but it's clear there is a lot of new collectors and there's a lot of new people out there participating in the hobby now.
Absolutely, and big shout out to Wade, Glennie, Captain McMahon. Sorry, I meant to message you back today. I sent a bleary-eyed message
Mr.
to
Sutherland,
McMahon at 1
Michael
o'clock
Kerr,
this morning.
I hope you're doing well.
Yes, g'day everyone. Everyone piling onto stream. Have we frozen a little bit here? No, we're okay.
No, we're good.
Yeah, look, it's been a huge week, and obviously we've been incredibly busy here. G'day, Jax. And just the sentiment and the engagement across all the different channels. And I mentioned, eBay first of all. eBay listings have been going absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
There's been some fantastic promotions. There's been quite a few people that I'm sure on the stream have been well and truly aware of the $70 off vouchers and coupons, which have been very good. G'day, Shane. G'day, Mitch. Both Mitches. So that's certainly put a lot of traffic on eBay. They're clearly making a really big play into the collectible space.
Yeah. So doing the coupon is so smart, such a smart thing. And
absolutely.
So the timing worked out so perfect with the release of Optimum as well. It made so many more of those cards affordable. And
also boxes, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But the groups have been pumping. Obviously, Good Vibes has had ridiculous numbers of engagement, join,
and it's just
interest.
Been positive. Like,
it's been really good.
Everything's been so positive. The sentiment, the posting, the commentary, everything's just overwhelmingly positive. And I think I said something maybe earlier in the week. It's all a bit of a blur, but I might have put up a post earlier in the week, or I intended to. I don't know if I actually did it, where commenting on, I've never seen such a level of positivity. Normally that first couple of days when people start getting boxes, you see the mixed emotion. And often we have to talk about it as admin of groups on Facebook of everyone, there's a lot of emotion around it. There's people are elated, people are happy, and there's people that are really upset. This time around, I didn't see really much of the, I got a bad box, I'm upset, it's not fair. It's just, I don't know, something seems so much more positive right now than what it even was a few months ago, both in the hobby, but also maybe the way this particular product is collated and how much is actually in it.
Well, I sort of take two things from it. First of all, I think, as we've talked about for the last 12 months on air, SEC has been an absolute blessing.
Yeah.
Everyone, it feels that wanted to get a box, got a box in some fashion.
Yeah.
The product is loaded, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago on the stream.
Yeah.
There's always going to be better boxes than others, just because some have the hits, some don't. But the few posts that I have seen that you mentioned of perhaps people not being happy, well, they were complaining they got a platinum DPS. Yeah. And that was classed as a bad box. Or a couple of All Australians where one of those cards is numbered to 80.
Yeah.
So,
and look, I think it's been determined, like what was considered by people to be the low box or the not good box was the double All Australian box.
Yep.
With that being said, you're still talking about case hits. And I think it's really interesting how things have changed, obviously, and essentially 11 out of 12 boxes working on the basis of averages or what used to be cases, 11 out of 12 boxes all contain effectively a high value short print case hit. Now, obviously, it's impacted things in terms of box hits, and we'll talk about that a bit later, and it's changed the landscape a bit, but it's very hard not to be happy with opening any box of Optimum.
Well, we forget, no less, I think back to as close to dominance in 2020, where there were legitimately boxes that had no case hit.
4 boxes per case.
And, you hit that metal card or the All-Australian card, like metal card back in
certified
days,
it's like,
it's dead.
We're dead.
The box is absolutely dead.
That's right.
And some of the creative collation, and I use that word creative, I'm going to talk about collation later on, you literally don't know what's going to come out. We've obviously opened a little bit of stock here through breaks, and being able to see different collation patterns, it keeps you guessing.
Absolutely.
There's times where you're getting multiple dual six.
We think we know what's coming, and then all of a sudden something else comes. And
that's right.
Or an extra hit. The extra hit's been the really big one here as well, and not just in the context of the black. But clearly they didn't increase the overall size of production. So there's clearly been additional hits left over in the collation, which has ended up still in the product.
And great comment here, Sean, for the first comment I put on screen. Let me read that out for people that are listening on podcast. There have been a shift in people's attitudes. I think all posts and comments, along with conversation, has enlightened people's view on how we all attack the hobby.
Love it, Sean.
That's really sharp, Sean. And something I certainly, if I had to summarize it into a couple of words, I feel the community as a whole and the hobby have been a little bit more patient and a little bit more
maturing.
It's
maturing,
and which is something we've been
what it is
talking about for a couple of years.
Maturing.
So I think that's a really positive step. There's still a long way for us to go. But it's interesting. Actually, look, let's Nico's
right there.
Should we let's
get straight into it.
Let's hit this one as it came up. Nico Kessler comment: biggest disappointment is getting nice cards where players have just moved clubs.
Probably the number one talking point on the negative of the release.
I think there's two sides to this. One, we spoke about how Select made a conscious decision to roll Brilliance out to give the market a little bit of respite. And by doing that, Series 2 was always going to be pushed back. The other thing too, as much as the hobby is maturing, the AFL market is maturing, and trades and swapping clubs is happening more than it ever has.
Well, and that's in previous years. There was never conversation around the draft picks or around the rookies and the draft picks and the draft class. It just was what it was. They were just another box hit in a set. Collecting has changed. Speculation has changed. How people collect and whatnot. We know it's constantly evolving, and we're certainly going through a period now where people are looking really at the rookies and at the draft picks. And in AFL, that's the draft class.
But without, sorry, just to pull you back onto this. Sorry, I just want to cover this though. That what we saw in the draft and the trade period in the AFL was on the last day,
the frenzy.
But there was half a dozen players, Mitchell, I've got absolutely gone blank here, but there was O'Meara. There were all these players that you class in the top 5 or 10 players that are probably on cards that have suddenly jumped ship at the 11th hour. Whereas a few years ago, this just wasn't happening. So it adds to a different dynamic. Pile that in with a delayed release for the Brilliance aspect, and we've seen something that we haven't seen before.
That's right.
Is this something that Select then look at now and go, well, hang on a sec, if we're going to do draft picks and those players,
let's make sure we hit by a certain date.
Make sure it needs to be in the footy season.
It has to be.
And all we ask is that as a community and as them as a publisher, that they continue to look at those things.
That's right.
And continue to improve.
Look, and I think the last 2 or 3 years has shown their willingness and the adaptation of their attitude towards feedback.
And here, Rich Locke made a good comment here. Jason Horne-Francis being number 1 and traded was a challenge for DPS. Absolutely. And I don't think we've ever seen that it happened so quickly. A key rookie being moved on to another club so fast.
Certainly not a number 1 draft pick.
But it also adds a different dynamic.
Yeah.
You've got North Melbourne collectors that there's a few that like to collect large amounts of cards and hoard and bulk.
Yeah.
But you've also got the Port Adelaide speculators.
That's right.
That now want it. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects its price moving forward.
Yeah.
Look, it's very interesting.
Dacos. We may as well just talk straight about DPS.
Yeah, let's go. Wait, I will come back to your question. I don't stress. I will come back to it. It's gone on the screen, but I saw it. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay, cool. So we may as well look. DPSs were certainly a topic for discussion for us, which we expected you guys would want to talk about tonight. Yep. We may as well just delve into it right now.
Good question, Rich. Yep.
The DPSs is a really interesting situation, and we often, and I'm sure a lot of you guys ask each other as well, especially with these new releases, like how do you value these cards? How do you put a value on the DPSs? You've got untested players, you've got some guys who played a handful of games that look like potential superstars, all this sort of stuff. There's numbering related things. There's a lot of different aspects to it. People, how can the Dacos be worth so much money? How can some of these players be worth so much money?
You've done a bit of research,
haven't you? And you've got to look at all aspects associated with this. And all we can do in cards is go back and look at what's previously happened. So, what we would call in the technical terms, the historical data of the historical sets and what has transpired. So let's make some comparisons here. And we may have talked about it before. I'm sure we probably have, but I'm happy to delve into it too.
So is the position, just before you get into that data, is your position that the Dacos Platinum or the Dacos DPSs, are they undervalued or are they overvalued?
So, well, for me, like as of right now, I think the DPSs from this release as of right now are probably one of the very few subsets that are at true current market value.
Okay.
So the ranges that they're selling in are mostly correct, in my opinion, based on our forecasting at the moment. However, the potential for what they could be worth in the future is huge. So these cards, due to the print quantities, have massive, massive medium and long-term upside.
Yep.
But not a huge amount of downside financial risk.
Explain.
Okay, so 20 the evolution of rookies. We all know what's going on at the moment. People are looking at it as more people come from other sports trading card genres into AFL. They apply their own collectability, which is a lot of it for is player collecting or rookie collecting. DPSs, they're draft pick signature cards, the player's first official card in team colors and the signature variation of it. 2019, Sam Walsh, numbered to 175. At the time, the card was selling. I definitely sold a couple of them for well under $100 at the time.
Yep.
That card numbered to 175, so the equivalent print quantity of a copper from Optimum is obviously selling for $1,000.
If you can find one.
If you can find one.
Yep.
Okay. Dusty, 2010 DPS.
Yep.
Numbered to 400.
Yep.
So more than double, almost 3 times the print quantity of a copper. So the highest print run in Optimum, also $1,000 card, correct?
Yep.
Yep, $1,000 card. Okay. Nick Dacos, the phenomenon that is Nick Dacos. Yeah. He showed first year form that was probably in line, if not better, was actually better by ranking numbers and stuff, better than Sam Walsh's first season was.
Yep.
Yeah. So superstar player, potentially, franchise family name, Collingwood, one of the biggest clubs. Who cares about collectability? Let's just talk about membership.
Yep.
Yeah. And
team moving in the right direction.
Supporter base. Team moving in the right direction faster than expected, with this guy basically going to be leading the pack of a future generation over the next 10 to 15 years of that football club.
Yep.
Does $500 for a copper DPS feel like an extraordinary amount of money right now? Sure, it absolutely does. If the Sam Walsh is $900 or $1,000 and the Dusty's $900 and $1,000 for the same print run card, in 5 years' time, will $500 seem very, very cheap? Most likely. Yeah? Cool. I think that's pretty, there's fair assumptions to be made there. If a Sam Walsh is $1,000 card now, well, in 2 years' time, if Nick Dacos, his trajectory doesn't change, doesn't get injured, all these sorts of things, well, that card should effectively be worth $1,000 in 2024.
If and this again is based on, we're not saying this is happening.
No, but
we're saying that you look at the markers and the speculation, and if he lives up to what he's meant to live up to,
that's right.
It makes sense. So
Yeah.
then how does that reflect then for a gold or a platinum?
But then this is where there's an unknown. We don't know because there's nothing to measure up against this.
Yep.
We've never had cards printed that short as DPSs, which have gone on to achieve player status like that, you know? Like you can't really look at the Ugle-Hagen stuff because he hasn't had enough game time or successful game time to
we saw a little bit of this with Jamara last year.
So we saw a lot of speculation, and then it fell off a bit. But then it's risen back up again.
Could I maybe then, as a counter argument to what you're saying, and let me just say, I agree with what you're saying, but I feel like there was speculation about Jamara. He didn't live up to it.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't want to use the word burnt, but there were definitely some people that probably got burnt. And then there was a couple of games late this year, and forwards take a little bit longer to come on, that actually showed that maybe he's going to be something. So is it going to be one of those situations that at the moment it might feel like it's expensive, but if you are in the speculation game or you're a Collingwood fan or you think that he's going to be a good player, the price is perhaps not as bad as people say.
I don't understand how it gets cheaper. Unless something dramatic happens with his performance during
injured,
the season next year.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. But aside from that, like it's you know, people, when is the opportunity to buy? Do you know what I mean?
But what about Matt Rao? So that's another example where that was probably the first time we saw
speculation on it.
You know, and I remember they came out at like $300. When no one really paid over $100 for a DPS.
And then he got injured, obviously,
twice.
But here's the thing as well: it's hard to compare because it's Gold Coast, and as a lot of people always talk about, imagine some of these interstate players lived and played for Victorian clubs. They'd be front page of the sports section superstars. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so we look at the price of. And I, you know, the few sales that we've seen gone through are around the sort of $1,500 to $1,700 range for a platinum for Dacos. What, you know, and we're certainly not shilling here or anything like that. You know, we don't earn any. Where could we see a price of a card like that go?
It's unknown. People can figure it out for themselves. Like that's the thing. Like number to 85, number to 40, the scarcity into the future of those cards, they're just completely unattainable. The offset to it is, well, how many people have the money to fork out at that price level? Is there 5 people? Is there 500 people? Is there 5,000 people that all have the access to that sort of disposable money that they're prepared to spend on it? Yep. So, you know, Dusty, and you being a Dusty collector, that's funny. Demonstrated that the money exists.
AJ Gribbs, who's a very wise man, imagine what the price of a Dusty DPS would be if it was limited to 40. Paraphrase.
But that's the thing. Like, okay, so you're a Dusty collector.
Yep.
Dusty DPS. So if there was a Dusty DPS number to 40, it would be one of the shortest print, but certainly the most desirable Dustin Martin card in existence.
Sure.
Hardest to get.
Sure.
Is that a $10,000 card?
No.
What is it? So his normal card is numbered to 1,000, and this is 1/10 of the print.
I reckon, and someone else, Brooksy's just commented 5,000. I think probably 5,000. I would look at that and looking at, say, like his Premiership Brownlow double, which is Supremacy, number to 25, which I class as one of his best signature cards.
Yeah.
If he had a number to 40 DPS, I feel like it would be in that range of $5,000.
If you could even find one after a decade.
Of course.
That's
probably where the price can move.
How cards disappear so dramatically over time. Because in a lot of instances, once they're locked into a collection, even if that collector becomes inactive, the cards just end up getting put away for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that's why it's still so difficult to find those captain signatures and the Hall of Fame signatures from the releases from between 10 and 25 years ago, you know?
Well, that's it. You know, you look at, when we were literally talking about this earlier today, you look at those 2001 captain signatures from Authentic, I think it is.
Yeah.
Which is Hurd, Buckley,
Harvey,
Wayne Campbell. Forget about the point. You just can't find them.
Can't find the card.
You can't find them. Right. And then numbered to 50, Yeah, from a Series 2
That's
release,
right. And the whole
they
thing
just
is
don't exist.
that now the desirability is around rookie cards. So the market, the amount of people that want DPSs, and it's not even team collectors. It's just any type of collector.
Everyone wants it. Everyone wants
the
to take us.
Demand is huge for them.
Yeah.
You know, and again, signature cards in general. There's a clear shift going on at the moment.
Yep.
We've said for the last couple of years that signature cards in general seem to be undervalued against the rest of the market. Then there was no premium value put on the cards outside of the print numbers, basically.
Yep.
People just viewed them as other cards. There's been a psychological shift there. People are now...
Well, they've been also horrendously undervalued.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
We've been saying that for literally 2 years.
Yeah.
That signature cards are undervalued in the AFL market.
Yeah.
And now, while we have more collectors, more releases, more short print cards.
Yeah.
That, you know, and you bang on to me about this all the time.
Yeah, the focus has shifted.
But the differential is going to be something the player has touched opposed to something the player has printed on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can't reproduce infinite cards that are signature cards, especially on card signatures.
Yep.
And like, I can't bang on about this enough. And that's why I go so hard at the St Kilda SIGs across all releases, is because at the end of the day, once they've got a license to someone's image, someone's name, and someone's likeness, you can just keep producing all different types of cards for eternity.
Sure.
But once someone signs something, they may never sign again, whether they pass away or they choose not to ever want to sign something. So it's, although a short print card is limited, something that's signed or has or memorabilia, a patch, something, you know, whatever it is, it has more of an eternal value to it, to me. And yeah, we're starting to see that real shift take place. At the moment.
So something, and this is without notice, Jacob Babbitt's just made a good comment. Maybe we are looking at the new Dusty in some of these SIGs that people are hoping to cash in for cheaper for the next star.
Absolutely.
And that makes me think about something that we're all talking about Dacos, all right? But there could be players here in either this year or last year that have signed these numbered to 46.
Yeah.
That people are selling off at $100, $150 each.
5 years' time is the next superstar. 100%.
There's plenty of players that take a while to come on.
Yeah.
They're maybe either a bad club or they're interstate club or whatever. No worries, Bon Jono. You know, there's so many unknowns, and that's, again, you know, we've talked a little bit about Supremacy rookie numbered to 25. It takes a little while for us to see where these players are at, and by the time we realize they're good,
it's too late.
Well, yeah, there's 25 of those cards.
That's right. But I think people are more conscious of that, which is why we're seeing certain subsets dry up much quicker as well.
Absolutely. So just while we're talking about DPSs, I know we're going to bounce around a little bit tonight.
Yeah.
I personally think, you know, last year's DPSs, there was some poor pen usage, some poor penmanship.
Yeah.
There was some smudges, that kind of stuff. I think out of the few hundred DPSs I've touched through breaks and cards we've looked here, I think I've seen one or two with a small blemish. The board that they've used for the cards and the texters, and also the players have made a really good effort this year of not having shit signatures.
Yeah.
And I know
it was like penmanship in general. They're becoming
they're
more conscious. Yeah, they're more conscious of it.
The Matt Rowell year, how many times Matt Rowell
two letters, initials,
which they were kind of taking the piss with.
Yeah.
Some of the signatures are beautiful.
Yeah.
And, you know, hats off to not only the players, Selective obviously gone back and worked on it.
Yeah.
But the DPSs as such are just a beautiful card in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think they're good. And as you said, whatever they've done in terms of material and pen usage and stuff like that, seems to have worked. Obviously, we've still seen, I think, two we've seen with mine.
And it's actually both, they were both Melbourne ones. So I wonder whether or not it was just part of a batch.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they definitely seem to be getting better than that. And as you said, like, card material, like to me, the best looking DPSs are 2019 Dominance. They look amazing, but there's such huge issues with pack damage on those cards. Like, you know, I've got Max Kings from that release.
Have you?
Yeah, just a few, but most of them, I would say most of them have either edge or cornering issues.
A bit of foiling.
Yeah, like with the foiling, that's right, on the corners, whereas they seem to have gotten better at that. And again, you know, I think card companies, the publishers, the manufacturers, they have a responsibility, as they're in a really good time period at the moment. They're clearly selling a lot of product. It's good to see them putting back in. Put the money back into the R&D.
Yep.
Put the money back into the physical product.
Yep.
Get better at it. Use better finishes. Take people's, people's feedback with regards to the physicality of cards and work on it. And I think we're seeing that. And I'm not sure that there's really more we can ask for as collectors.
No, and I guess we're going to see that firsthand in whatever it'll be the next couple of months when we start to see the dual signatures and the mirror seats come back.
Yeah.
There were clearly issues last year with the board or transport or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Have they learned from this? And are those mirror dual sigs going to look cleaner, sharper, and without the card damage?
It's really interesting.
That was in production.
It was interesting that the redemptions have the plastic layer on them. I don't know if they had that last year.
Yeah, they had it last year. Yeah, all the mirror cards.
Okay.
Yeah, the 55s did. Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's I'm very excited to see those redemptions, both the normal mirrors and the dual sigs as well.
Well, accidental segue. I did notice today on the Select website they have listed, and for people that don't know, Select now have a standalone website, selectredemptions.com, where it lists all the outstanding redemptions, process to redeem. Looks like they're starting to move to the 21st century with streamlining redemptions.
Yeah.
I'm sure sometime in the future we're going to get to the point where we've got a code or a scan on the back of the cards, but they've clarified that you need to send your card in.
Yeah.
You no longer have to send in packaging or stamps or return
they're going to cover the return. But I think the really good thing about it is,
which is good.
They're moving with the times in terms of keeping track of cards and whatnot. So you go through the website, you do a formal submission of the card you're sending in.
Yep.
They know then what they're expecting.
Yep.
They'll have it prepped and ready to go. They know what's inbound. If there's an issue in transit, both parties will be aware of it.
Yep.
And clearly, they said they were moving to this process. They set up that website. My expectation would be this is the start of the process.
Yep.
Of the implementation of them moving with the times into the future.
Yep.
I don't mind the idea that they haven't gone full steam from the outset with codes to begin with.
Yep.
I imagine they're probably using Optimum as a testing to some sort of extent, or not a testing, but a way to introduce the new system.
Well, it's also lag. Like as we've talked about again, there's 6 to 9 months in production lead. So people think Optimum was produced 2 weeks ago, and we get it. They would have been doing this at the start of the year.
Yeah.
So it takes time to roll those things across.
Hopefully 2023 we see the implementation of the fully digital system and they've incorporated into the cards or something in some way.
Get it done, James.
No worries.
So make sure you check that out if you've got any of the mirror sigs or the dual sigs. Check out selectredemptions.com. They've got all the information there about current ones and also previous FAQs. But while we're talking about that, Select mirrors. We said very early on that we thought that was one of the huge value adds to the release. It's certainly something that, it was a genius idea to shift probably a card that was undervalued and unloved from last year to actually make it 2 additional proper hits in a case.
They've turned those case hits now into high value case hits based on physicality of the card, not just the short print.
Quality players. You know what I mean? Like
some of the
Buckley,
signings that
Dunstall.
Look, for me, G-Train for me was, as I've said, never signed for the trading card company. So really big and really exciting.
Where do you think they're going with value at the moment?
So value at the moment is, they've started in the last couple of days. So make no mistake, folks, I think most people watching the show know exactly how things work these days. Release comes out, everything opens up super hot. It's every release, it's now opening up higher and higher and hotter and hotter. It's not getting to a peak, it's starting at a peak basically. Then over the days, people open more and more cards. They spend money, they want to then recoup money. Someone advertised a card that was $600 yesterday for $500 today. The next person goes at $450. There's a bit of a race to the bottom. We are seeing it happen faster and faster every release. This is natural. This is normal. It's the market movement and how it goes. Starts high, drops off, plateaus, and then starts to move up again as scarcity kicks in the bargain.
But if you've missed those cards and they've been snapped up, they disappear.
That's right. So the mirrors, to answer the question directly, right now, they're starting to hit our range. They started well above our opening range where we thought they were. Again, the long-time listeners and viewers know that we build our own spreadsheets and stuff for every release with our projected price ranges. And for those who don't know, we look at it on sort of a low and high basis, which then gives us a median average of the range. So we don't say a card should be $350. We work out what the range should be within about $100 sort of thing. So they started off above where we thought the opening range was. They've now moved, or most of them have moved, a couple still to go, into the price range where we think they are the correct buy, and that's where they should be valued right now.
Yep.
But our projected ranges were only for early, like for a new release. It doesn't take into account the future. I think out of all the cards in the whole release, in terms of both financial upside and therefore scarcity into the future, if you're a collector and you want to get one, I think that the single mirror SIGs are the cards that are going to be the hardest to get and have the biggest upside. Number to 50, ranging around the 300 or sort of 300 to 500 range at the moment, which is about right. Number to 50, a lot of them massive players, both either of the last decade or of previous decades. The cards will in the future be able to be compared to other signature case chase cards from previous releases. Number to 50, they'll, in my opinion, be a lot harder to find.
I made a comment to someone the other day. You look at a platinum DPS that might be worth $300 or $350, that you're speculating on this person's future. You then look at Nathan Buckley. It's still fucking Nathan Buckley. In a year's time, he's still going to be Nathan Buckley. Whereas Minx, who knows how he's going to go.
That's the thing about trying to get something now because of what its future value would be versus already priced in. Back to the DPS thing.
Tommy, we'll get to footy's finest.
People are already pricing in Nick Dacos and Sam Walsh to be dual Brownlow medalists, multi-Norm Smith medalists. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are already pricing that in. Whereas, exactly as you said, these other guys have already achieved that. Well, not if you have a G training, but some of these other guys have already achieved that. And again, will they sign again into the future? Well, who knows what's going to happen? Do you know what I mean? So, to me, those are the cards that are probably going to have the most sort of potential upside in the future. But do you want to ask me about what I think is overvalued?
In a second.
All right.
A couple of very quick questions I'm just going to touch on
before we get strong thoughts.
We're going to get to it. Don't worry. Bonjour. I'll be happy.
Bonjour.
Some question was, why do they put the film on the mirror cards, even though they're redemptions?
I think it's packets.
If they weren't covered, people would get upset, and people like to collect the redemption cards, so that's probably why they do it.
Yeah.
There was another question. I can't remember. Oh yeah. Here we go. Jacob Mabbott, busy tonight. From last year's mirrors, are they undervalued now, or do they think they've just flopped?
Probably a combination of both. I think they flopped, and as a result, they're extremely undervalued. I think, again, although people talk about an exodus of team collectors, I think there's a lot that still exist, and they very much are flying under the radar. I think those cards ultimately, because of the print quantity and the scarcity of them, will shoot back up, but it may take it quite a long time.
I don't agree. I reckon they've flopped. I just think they were remiss. Sometimes there's a miss in every release. That's just my opinion. I think they're a miss. Stacey, Jenks, do you know that the Max King #1 is Footy's Finest is on eBay?
Yeah, I know. I'm currently the leading bidder on it. How about
that? Everyone bid it up.
Don't get too excited, guys, because I'm not going to go too high on it.
Run it up.
When he asked me what I don't like, what I think is overvalued in the release.
Well, hang on. Let me lead into it, all right? So Bonjono asked us about... Let me put the question up. Tom Bongiorno, and at 8 o'clock, he's finished doing the news, so it's good that he's got some time for us tonight. Can we touch on the cost of Footy's Finest? Undervalued. Have they been put in the darkness due to the amount of SIGs? Short answer is, I think they are overvalued, and Jenks agrees with me, and he is going to explain why.
It is. I have a very strong opinion on the Footy's Finest. They're fantastic cards. I love them.
My favorite card.
Previous ones, love them. Aesthetically, great cards. Everything about them is good, except I think they're massively overvalued. And again, all I can go against is the historical market. The prices that the White Footy's Finest have opened up at are astronomical based on what those cards are and your chances of hitting them. So 1 in every 6 boxes, essentially. Number to 80. True case hits, absolutely, no doubt about it. Fantastic,
beautiful
cards.
looking cards,
fantastic cards.
Star players.
Why did they open at $500, $600, $700, $400?
Why did they?
I don't know why they did. People were very excited, shiny new thing. But in my opinion, and I'm happy to be proven wrong by the marketplace, which ultimately will prove me wrong if it's to be wrong here. They've opened up way too high. The ones back from 2016 and 2017 were never at those price levels. Even now, to this day, unless there's an outlier, and there's always going to be outliers, Dusty and a Sam Walsh, for example, in the current one, they were never at those sort of price levels. Jack Stephen used to play for St Kilda. The card was released and was out for 3 years whilst he still played for St Kilda and was our best and fairest winner. It was still always a $80, $90, $100, $110 card. I think I had 5 or 6 of them at one point in time. And when he left, I got rid of him. And I reckon I was selling him for $100 in 2020. Like the footy's finest just never had that value. Now, is this set going to change that? Is the new pricing of footy finest going to bring up the value of the old ones? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think as the release continues to be opened over the next 2 weeks, we are just going to see an abundance of them come to light. And the question is, are people hoarding them? Because if they're not hoarding them, then something numbered to 80, there's going to be a lot of them around for the next few months, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, and sort of obviously we are very aligned here. We thought they were probably a $150 to $400 card.
$400 right at the top. That's top end.
That's Walsh is pretty much the outlier.
Yeah.
I know I've had a few people come to me with Cotchins, and I personally don't think it's over a $300 card, and eBay has reflected that. The ones at 300 have gone. There's been a few that have sold with a 4 in front of it, but there is simply just not enough collectors out there
for the print of the card.
And for the price it's demanding.
That's right, I agree.
And that doesn't take it away from being the look of it or how it is or whatever it is. It just doesn't make sense with the numbers.
Yeah.
So, if you've bought a Footy's Finest, don't feel bad about it. It's a beautiful card, and we've both bought them.
That's it. I've already bought as well, and I've paid into the high market because I'm also hedging. That I don't want to be left in the lurch and not have the card. I'm a full set collector.
Yep.
I need the cards, and that probably leads to the Footy's Finest Black.
We'll get to the black. I know a lot of people
about that as well. But the fundamental aspect is there's still a huge amount of set collectors around.
Yeah.
Like full team master set collectors. And sometimes people take hiatus and they come back again and whatever it is. But there's always going to be new collectors into the future as well.
Sure.
So again, like the print numbering does make a significant difference. And that's why everyone, including myself, has still a big list of cards from the last 25 years, or at least from all-time select sets that you just cannot find.
Yeah.
You can't find them. Some of them numbered over 100. You can't find them.
Yeah.
So what happens to all these modern day short print cards?
Yeah.
Like I have no intention to sell any of my collection at all. It'll be passed on to my kids in between 10 and 20 years time, sort of thing. You have a good idea. So do other people. Some of the volume of cards I have in my collection.
Yep.
What's going to happen over the next 5 years if my football club all of a sudden starts doing well and more collectors come in?
Yep.
Unless I'm prepared to give out parts of my collection, people simply won't be able to find those cards.
Of course. And look, there's always going to be outliers. Like I'm seeing a few comments about some prices. I won't hit on individual cards specifically, but there is always going to be outliers high and low in the first week. And again, we're not saying that our estimate or prediction of pricing is any right or wronger than anyone else. That's a good comment.
I like that.
Yeah. But just realize the numbers have to make sense. Like I had a conversation with a guy today, and I won't go into too much detail with it, but was trying to justify how a certain Footy's Finest would compare against a Brilliance Gold. And I'm like, they're just not. There's daylight. There's absolutely daylight.
It's a different field. Like
and people are saying at certain price points they buy all those cards up. Well, I mean that will probably happen if they go too far, and
that's why they then disappear.
That's right.
But at the current prices, you can't. It's hard to collect multiples of them.
Yep.
Who's going out and paying $500 for 20 of the card? You know what I mean? Like it's a huge amount of money to be spending on those cards.
Agree.
But I totally agree with McMahon, and I would probably say the same thing. If the Kings go down to 150, I'll just keep going. I'd keep buying them as they popped up. You know.
Yep.
That's you know, at that price, I'd love to have them in my collection.
Sure. So good luck bidding on that 01.
Yeah.
You know, not that anyone's watching.
Maybe
Don't
actually
go and run it up.
Before we jump onto the footy's finest, since we're talking about values and cards and things, how to project values and how to range them correctly.
Sure. Go off track. Let's go.
Okay. The devaluation of box hits due to the increase in case hits.
Okay.
So the way the product has become so loaded on the top end, on the top end, we'll call it.
Yep.
So now with all these short print case hits, has ultimately led to a current, and it may not be long term, it might just be a current situation, and it will be till the cards dry up, that box hits have now been devalued. So anyone who's been around for a while, in the past, when you bought Series 2 product, and even Series 1 product for that matter, of footy cards, it was based on your box hits, whatever the 1 or 2 big box hits were, would hopefully get you back the box value. And then if you were lucky enough to get a case hit, all of a sudden you were looking at extreme value. But now that there's so many case hits with so much higher value,
signatures,
that's right. It's taken the gloss away from the box hits. And all of a sudden we're seeing cards numbered to 80, cards numbered to 95. In this particular release, the futures and the matrices selling for $25, $30, $40, $50, where historically comparable cards to those were going $100, $150, $200 if you had the really good one. You would get back 2/3 of the value of a box, if not more, if you hit the right player or team as your box hit.
So do you know where, and we talked about this earlier today, but this just came to my mind. I think this was first prevalent in Prestige 2020, where you had Brownlow vote getters that were numbered to 80, star players that were horrendously undervalued because there was so much attention on the greens numbered to 60, and then the showstoppers, and then suddenly those 8 were just in a no man's land of not being desirable, not being in demand because they felt like so many of them were around. And we said, many, many times that those cards will dry up and are incredibly undervalued.
Absolutely. And they are still undervalued. Against the long-term market, if people find them desirable in the future.
Correct.
So, there's arguments that go every which way. And, I suppose I'm really neutral in terms of my perspectives. There is no doubt that increased releases and increased numbered cards is devaluing a bunch of the older numbered cards. There's no doubt about it.
Sure.
But we're also seeing valuation of both new and old cards continuing to hit new highs.
But also the whole...
So it's changing. It's not diminishing. It's changing the spread. The spread's changing.
Yeah. Look, I guess we, without going into too much detail, we had a rough average price of a box that we estimated something with a 5 in front of it for an Optimum. All right. I tell you right now, 5-6 years ago, there wasn't a box that was produced that had expected outcome of anything close to a 5.
That's right.
You were lucky if you broke even. So as much as we are seeing that there is...
You're trying to get the one case hit to get above the box value.
That's right. Whereas now we're seeing a little bit, I don't want to use the dilution, but more produced numbered cards. People forget about how scarce it was previously.
Correct.
There is so much value still coming out of your box.
People also forget how high printed cards were previously.
A lot
of people think that there's dilution taking place. There's dilution. There's no dilution. The previous inserts, pre 2018, 2019, the numbers cards were printed to was astronomical. They've decreased the production runs, but increased the amount of releases. And this is the other thing, obviously, that's happening with that. Because there's more premium releases coming out, some of them are taking the shine off the other one.
Sure.
So I would say both shown by data and at a personal level, releases like Brilliance have probably at this point in time devalued releases like Prestige. So Prestige, a Prestige green, Prestige cards are not as desirable as what they were even 6 months ago because of the high quality releases that have come out. And the thing about the high quality releases, they're coming out at price points that are massively affordable to anyone and everyone.
Yep.
So as a result, people can actively go and seek brilliance cards at the same rate as they can get prestige cards.
Yep.
So it's actually devaluing than the other ones. I think long term, over the course of time, as cards disappear and the depth thins out, they'll always go back up again.
Of course.
But right now, there's definitely a dip in prestige going on directly as a result of brilliance and Optimum as well to an extent.
Absolutely. Look, we've talked. We think probably prestige went one run too many.
Yeah, probably 1 year too many. Yeah,
and you're right. There is the gloss of it and the desirability probably shifted. But again, the key teams and the key players of greens, they're going to be harder to find in the future.
Absolutely. And again, it all comes down to, do you think over the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, that set collectors continue? Because as long as people still keep wanting everything or different bits of different things and not just the latest thing, there'll always be a desirability, and there'll never be enough of the cards around for the amount of people that want them.
I personally can't see how it changes, because AFL versus something like NBA, AFL is tribal, whereas NBA is so player focused.
Yeah, it's very fickle. Yeah,
on a card level,
yeah,
but also a supporter base.
Yeah,
they will follow LeBron everywhere.
AFL's fanatical. Then it's our national code.
Yep,
and it's also a domestic market. We don't have the international forces of trading cards messing with AFL in Australia.
Well, here's a good practical example. Hunter Clark, who you love, if he went and played at North Melbourne, would you still collect Hunter Clark cards?
I wouldn't collect North Melbourne ones, but I'd retain my entire Hunter Clark collection of St Kilda ones.
Sure. And so that shows that it doesn't matter how much you love a player and you love him.
Yeah, I wouldn't go for him. But the North people will start collecting him as well. So
correct.
He has value into the future in terms of collectability. Yeah.
So let's move to the Blacks, footy's finest.
Yeah.
Obviously
interesting card.
Yeah, interesting card. And there was a comment Wade made earlier about past players being 16 of the players, and then they used Bontempelli and Dusty. Personally, as a Dusty collector, I thought there was a huge Dusty-sized hole in the checklist when I first saw it.
Yeah.
I was hoping that it was going to be, we all thought it was going to be a gold matrix or something like that. I was hoping it was going to be Dusty. I wasn't unhappy that Dusty was on the black.
Yeah.
Always happy to have Dusty cards. In a little bit of reflection, I think Dusty and Bont were on the previous series of Footy's Finest.
Yeah.
So they can't reuse those players.
Okay.
And
so because they didn't make it into the whites, it made sense. Though.
Yep.
Okay.
But I also think that there was probably some missteps with players that they picked.
Okay.
So personally, I think Nathan Buckley didn't need to be on the SIG, the dual SIG and the black.
Yeah.
Clearly Pendlebury has pissed somebody off at Select.
Can't get on the card.
The fact that he can't get on an influential or a Footy's Finest, I'm going to apologise on the behalf of Select to the whole Pendlebury family. That is really stiff.
Yeah.
Same thing with. That was the main one I want to mention. I think it is a beautiful looking card. There's no secret. Footy's Finest is a favourite of mine.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have a Dusty Black in my possession.
Yeah.
I love the card. It's one of my favorites. But the value of these things and the pricing that people are asking for,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I probably won't be as diplomatic. I think they've come out incredibly hot. I can understand how a card is semi-relative to what it might have been, say, a Brilliance Gold.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Hodge, for example.
Yeah.
A Hodge number to 35 was about $1,500.
Yeah.
The number to 30 black is about the same price, $1,500. I get that. Everyone would have seen the Dusty 01 that was out there for $7,500.
Yeah.
That number seemed crazy to me, considering the 01 Premiership Brownlow double, I think, sold for $7,900, which was a phenomenal price. It was really big. These cards numbered to 30, the question we always keep saying is is there enough collectors out there to buy them?
At the price level.
At the price level.
Is there enough?
Is there 30 Hawthorn collectors that are going to spend $1,500?
Yeah.
Is there 30 St Kilda collectors, if you don't buy them all, that are going to buy the locket at $1,000 or $700? Because then you start looking at things like the locket card numbered to 30 versus a locket signature numbered to what, 50?
Yeah.
Which one are you going to prefer to have in your possession?
Well, so for me, it's really funny. So, I'm a set collector, so I have to have the black regardless. But every day of the week, I'm taking a supremacy locket signature to 50 over a number to 30, 35-point card from the Series 2 set.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to devalue these cards or demonize the cards. They're great cards.
And they're expensive.
They're great cards.
They're expensive cards. But
as well as a lot of other people, I have a fundamental issue with doing super short print on cards that aren't of superior quality. I feel like super short print, 25, 30s, 20s, whatever it is, should be reserved for something that has physical attributes that exceed everything else that surrounds it.
Sure.
So to me, whether that's a brilliance card, 180-point physical border, cased up, all that sort of stuff, or it's supremacy, a super premium release, 130-point patches, signatures, all these sorts of things. To me, that's the expectation in terms of quality of what super short print should be for AFL cards, and that's what we're used to. Now, in other sporting codes, and especially NBA, NFL, baseball, and everything, infinite one of ones, one of fives. Every type of card has a million different variations in all sorts of print quantities, and going all the way down to one of ones. I just don't see that in AFL. We've been too spoiled for too long to accept that to be the full direction that it's going in. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I need the Black Footy's finest. I need them in my set. I'd like to have multiples of the locket for all my different sets and low numbers and all that sort of stuff. But if it came down to it and you put two cards, if I had both cards, if I already had one of each in my collection and you put a locket to 30 or a locket sig from Supremacy in front of me and tell me they're the same price, I'm taking the locket sig every single time. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I always try to look from my perspective about how we can compare it to previous releases. And again, going back to say something like Dominance in 2020, where it was an Ablett influential, a Grundy influential, those cards were $1,200, $1,500, and at the time was super expensive. You go then look at a Hurd or a Buckley or a Hodge, black. I'll leave Dusty out. Dusty is a bit of an outlier, which I completely get. His cards are more expensive. I don't see how suddenly, a Buckley numbered to 30 is worth $2,000 or $2,500 when at the time Grundy was hot, all that kind of stuff. Number to 40 is a $1,200 to $1,500 card. It's too much of a leap.
It's too much of a discrepancy between the two.
Don't get me wrong, we're not devaluing these things at all. There's no argument these cards are worth $1,000, $1,500, depending on team player. Absolutely. But it's like people are trying to price them the price they want to get versus what the actual price is. So, you always got to try to find some comparisons. But if you're trying to sell one, just remember, you've got to find a buyer that is willing to buy that. It's really, really complicated.
That's a good one from Marty.
Hang on, let me get it up.
That is a really good one. So that's a great comparison. I hadn't thought of it either.
So Marty Davis, for people that don't know, is probably one of the biggest signature collectors in the community. And his comment is, interested to know your thoughts, say Lockett Sig Supremacy number to 50 versus Lockett Hall of Fame number to 110.
Okay, so the card Marty's talking about there is from 2018 Legacy. It's a Tony Lockett Hall of Fame signature card. It's the same design and aesthetic that's been continued from two other previous series as well.
08 and 96.
It is absolutely one of the most loved and important sets of cards and subsets of cards. Hence, they've done it across 3 releases. The cards are incredible. They are incredibly difficult to find. The Lockett is an amazing card. I'm very lucky. I've got a few of them in my collection, including his Brownlow jumper number. Amazing card. Amazing looking card. It is on 35 point. It does have some additional attributes like the foiling. It's got foiling. It also has holographic text on it as well.
What are they worth?
They are, if you can find one these days, I haven't seen one come to market for a long time. I'm assuming that's $1,000+ card now.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's $1,000 to $1,500 if you were to find one.
Yep.
So it's running at probably the same price as the Supremacy.
Yep, which is numbered half.
Which is half the numbering. Yep. Oh, you put me in a spot here.
Well, you'd buy the Hall of Fame ones, wouldn't you?
No.
You buy the Supremacy?
Yeah.
Interesting. So
I buy the Supremacy because I feel like the Supremacy, again, the numbering being half means they're twice as hard to acquire, but they're from a release that I just think is just so far above and beyond anything else.
You've always said Supremacy is its own beast.
It's its own thing. And since 2019, like to me, if you take all your cards and everyone took their collections at some point in the future, and you had to be separated in what's turned to shit and what's just gone to the moon. To me, Supremacy is still the release that will stand the test of time against every other release that's ever been created in footy cards.
Well, and interesting using that comparison. So I think it's Royce Hart, who is the Richmond one from that same release. That card you can buy for about $500 or $600.
Yeah.
You can also buy the same Supremacy card for about the same price.
Yeah.
On the flip side, the Kevin Bartlett, which was from the 04 or 08, I can't remember right this second, is about a $1,200 card, but he doesn't sign anything anymore.
Yeah.
So I think, again, these cards are so, especially the Hall of Fames.
Marty just said as well, like the Hall of Fames have a history because the players connect to each other.
Yeah,
absolutely. Ironically, I don't know if you remember.
And they're also just not around.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if Marty remembers this, but 3 years ago, I reckon it was.
Yep.
Marty did me a massive favor and drove about an hour because I found someone in Western Australia who had a Bulldog, and I was so scared I was going to get scammed. I actually sent money over to Marty. He withdrew it in cash and went and picked it up, and got an amazing deal on it and everything as well. And I absolutely agree with you, Marty. Like there is a historical connection between the cards and the releases, but if it came down to putting those two cards together, I would still be buying. I'd buy the Supremacy over the Hall of Fame. See.
Yeah, and look, Stephen Goodwin just made a good comment here. I'm on a bit of a tangent here, but
captain signatures are comparable here as well.
But the Herd captaincy signature for $3,500 and his Supremacy PBD. They are two cards you cannot find. So the comment goes, I've seen the Herd captaincy for $3,500 and his Supremacy for $3,900.
Yeah.
I remember very early on, it was one of the first unicorns, I think.
Yeah.
When we got a Herd Premiership Brownlow double for someone.
Yeah.
I think we paid $3,500 for it. At the time, that was one of the most expensive signature card sales that had ever happened.
That's right.
Now there is so many signature cards that have moved up.
Price,
but it's interesting. If a Hall of Fame set was broken up and those cards became available now,
what would happen?
Well, I kind of feel like
frenzy.
Well, I kind of feel like you wouldn't get a locker for $1,000.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's It's well, and again, it just shows you the cards are numbered to 110.
Yeah.
So what is going to happen after 2 or 3 years? These cards numbered to 50 and numbered to 40. And number to 60. It's that same recurring. It just keeps coming back full circle here to the same thing. But again, the comparison to captain signatures and Stephen Goodwin's situation: $3,500 for her captain signature numbered to 50, or $3,900 for a card numbered to 29.
Yeah,
that's on 130 point stock.
Yep,
is it much superior physically in terms of its attributes?
Yep,
it's not representing the player when he's the captain, but it's representing his Premiership Brownlow double achievement.
Yep.
To me, like if I had $40,000 and they were all put in front of me, I'm pretty sure I'm still buying 10 at 39,000 and 0 at 3,500 of the captain six. I'm buying all the You're
finding another 35K and buying it all anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
But look, so I guess to go back to the Black Footy's finest, they're a great card. They're super short print. They're worth a lot of money. Are they the most expensive cards that have ever been made, which is some of the prices that have been reflected on it? Probably not. But they are still a beautiful card.
And an unbelievable inclusion into a set.
Unbelievable.
That continues just to add more excitement, more chase.
And McMahon said something earlier that he thought they was so much better than the gold headliner. And I agree. I think the gold headliner at 25 was a nice card. The Black Footy's Finest is just a beautiful card.
An interesting one here.
1 sec, hang on. If Select keep getting these legends to sign each year, is that going to affect the prices?
I'd be more concerned that there's so many incredible signatures from the last 2 years. They're going to run out of people to sign cards. And then as a result, do we see a slowdown in a few years' time of signature cards? And therefore that then just, again, pushes up all these signature cards, the demand on them.
Maybe.
Because we're going through an era, like we're in a period of time. I said it in 2019 and I stand by it. Back in 2019, if you were around for the release of Supremacy, you will look back at it after a decade and go, wow, can't believe I was around when that thing came out.
And I could have bought 20 cases.
I can't believe I got my set done and I got those cards. Both I can't believe I got them in general and I got them for those prices.
Yep.
And I think this entire period we're going through, where clearly, yes, there's a boom in trading cards, but the boom is enabling the publishers and the manufacturers to produce cards and quality cards and procure signatures and all these things well beyond anything we've ever received in the decades before.
Yep.
And is this a time that we're in this little period that may only last a few years, that they can still get all these signatures and do all this stuff? And does it then, over the span of 50 years, was this anomaly of 5 years, which, wow, take away all the bullshit that's gone on. What a time to have been involved in collecting, selling, buying, trading, investing, speculating, breaking, razzing, whatever it is. But how fortunate are we all to have been around then? And like they say, you don't know what you've got until you have it no more.
Imagine if we went back to 2 releases a year, 1 box hit. It would be pretty grim.
Imagine the uproar.
Oh,
and what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. So what do they have in store for us next? I think it was Ash McMahon right at the beginning of the stream wrote, Select's 30th anniversary. Is there another huge release coming?
Is there? You won't select
As far as I know, I don't have any plans for any new releases. The 30th anniversary has been a bit of an afterthought for me.
We don't.
I've been too busy.
But I did notice on the Blacks, it's got the 30th anniversary logo.
There you go. That's one thing that I did not notice that you did.
Yeah, because I
will we see another release? If history of the last 2 years repeats itself, we'll see one more release before the end of the year.
Well, I feel like Supremacy Rookie's coming.
I feel like that.
How do they not do it?
I don't.
With day
how do they
costs
not do it again? And then 2023, we're expecting probably Supremacy or something the equivalent.
Yeah,
again,
Supremacy.
I wouldn't mind if they didn't do Supremacy again. I would certainly love if they did do it again, but I'd be happy to see something else. But again, bring on the high quality releases and bring them on at the price points they're charging for the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously everyone's in different financial situations, but the fact that, especially through SEC, anyone that can get a box at $300 or $600 or whatever Supremacy was, we're all very, very fortunate.
Absolutely.
We've just ticked over an hour, James. There's no unicorn tonight. We'll say that till next show. Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about?
I feel like
you did have.
I wrote a couple of notes before the show, which is unusual. I don't normally do it. Most of it was to do with Optimum. I feel like we've mostly gone through everything. There's obviously a couple of conversations during the week just about collation and product collation. And people getting duplicate inserts across 2 boxes or seeing the same things come out of boxes. So,
and look, we've talked about this previously on other shows.
I'm happy to touch on it again now.
Yeah. So the very quick snapshot of how they build collation. This is not necessarily for Select, but just in cards
in general. Yeah.
Cards are made on big sheets. They're cut up. They're put in hoppers. They're programmed by a computer, and then they spit out the different cards.
Yeah, there isn't a human standing there packing every packet and then packing the packets into boxes.
So there's always some scenarios where there is some sort of repetition, and we've talked about this, that in Dominance 2020, if you got a Brody Grundy, you got a Dusty. If you got a metal card, you got nothing. There is always these little kinks.
Well, in order to guarantee ratios, there has to be programming and repetition.
Of course.
So there may be 1,000 different sequences in a print run.
Yep.
It could be 100 different packing sequences in a print run.
Yep.
The one thing that we know is there'll always be more than one of the same.
Of course.
So, and that's both in terms of the packet collation and the packets into the box collation as well, to ensure that the averages always work out. Things are printed in large format. A little card's not just printed on like a miniature printer.
It's huge sheets.
It's huge sheets.
Yep.
And it's not like a sheet has all cards from one team on it. It's got a variety of different players, and there's a heap of different sequences of sheets.
Yep.
So they can ensure that randomization of how the sequencing works.
And there were a couple of instances that we saw on Good Vibes this week where people had received 2 boxes and they were basically the exact same, bar a few inserts.
Does it happen? Yes. Is it a rare occurrence?
It's very rare.
The law of probability will indicate that it's unlikely, but what may have happened is somehow 2 boxes from the same section of the production run ended up with going to the same place at the same time.
Yeah,
essentially.
It just happens.
It happens, and it's certainly not new to this year. It's been identified every single release every year.
But also, you get that scenario where perhaps you haven't had great hits. I remember, and I can't remember exact scenarios, but where people have got double case hits in 2 boxes or double whatever.
The same ones. So of good teams. Good
teams. Yeah. Like imagine if you got 2 boxes of the same collection, but they both had Dacosses in them.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be upset.
Yeah, you're definitely not putting up a post about it.
No. And it happens. And we've seen some weird things over, the dozen cases we've broken across RGB breaks, that there were some cases with 1 dual sig,
and some with 2 dual
some
sigs,
with dual sigs,
and some of the ones with 2 dual sigs had the same 2 dual sigs in them.
Yep, but
some had different as well.
But some had 4 or 5 platinums,
and some had no platinums.
Some had no platinums.
Yeah,
there's all these little kinks that can always.
And certainly,
happen.
like from my perspective, what's happening there is again they are trying, rather than having excess cards not going into circulation,
they're all getting put in.
They're putting more into circulation. So what's happening is at the back end of a run, basically, there's boxes that have case hits in them going back into circulation, basically. So,
and again, without knowing the exact answer, I would assume 10, 15 years ago, if there was a pile of influentials, whatever, that those boxes didn't get in, well, they just get sent back to select and they weren't in the print run.
Correct, yeah.
So I guess the positives is they're putting all these cards in the print run
to make sure they get out.
Yeah, so nothing's ever hidden.
Yeah.
But the downside is sometimes you're going to get some quirky things with collation.
Absolutely. All in all, though, amazing week.
Yep.
I can't remember.
Really good week, yeah.
As good a release week in terms of the vibe and the positivity and the sentiment around as this. And I can't wait to see what the next 7 days brings as well.
Yeah, lots of fun, lots of breaks, lots of trading.
A whole bunch of cards.
Lots of trading going on.
Yeah, lots of trading going on. And again, like as we see the price points level out and get to the correct price, you see the buying start to take place as well.
Yep.
There's been a lot more buying in the last 2 days than there was in the previous.
And we've certainly noticed that on eBay as well.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. All right. Well, thank you very much, Janks. Fantastic work as always. Thank you to everyone that's put questions in. It's been fantastic as always. We love getting your feedback and your input, not only on here, but also in store, in all the communities, breaks. Doesn't matter which break group or community you're in.
Yeah.
Fantastic to see all the input and the really good vibes that's going on. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, you can catch up on previous shows on our website, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all that kind of stuff.
All the usual
submit your unicorns. That will be back next week. Thank you to the whole team here that helps us produce the show every week. And thank you to you guys for being involved. But until next time, which will be about 2 weeks.
Couple of weeks. We're trying to get them out every 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get a lot of other content out as well, as you guys may have noticed. So again, big shout out to our team here. And we just want to try and bring more to you guys.
Beautiful. See you guys. Ciao.